Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is MTG Dude, and today I wanted to take a minute to just talk about some of the commanders that I've played against in pods and stuff like that. That kind of you just know that as soon as they hit the board, they're not going to be a fun time. Or as soon as that person flips it over and says, "Hey, this is my commander," it is not about to be a fun game. Now, I'm not knocking anybody that plays these decks or uses these as commanders because sometimes they do build them in very interesting ways, and you can't always take a book at the book by you can't judge a book by its cover. There we go. I can speak English. But these are just some of the ones that I know I've had just the worst experiences with as soon as I've seen them hit the table. And then it's almost always it becomes arch enemy. And I will say that if it wasn't for the fact that sometimes we're in such big games and we're doing so much interaction with this one person, that I'm gonna be honest with you. We might not ever know how well that game would have been with that person still in the game. But I was actually going to do a video on uh commanders from Bloomburrow that aren't getting as much love, and it looks like at least every single one of them so far has like 100 decks to its name. So it's kind of hard to do that, except for maybe one. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, Bloomburrow is not a bad set, but if you do have a commander that as soon as it hits the battlefield, or as soon as your buddy's gonna play it, that it's gonna be a bad game, let me know what that is down in the comments below. But let's go on ahead and get into this little top 10 list that I have together. Starting off with Voga, Jaws of the Conclave. And if you've never experienced Voga, let me tell you, you're not missing out on nothing. You're missing out on a somewhat worse game. Because for two generic, a red, a green, and a white, this is a 5/5 legendary creature wolf. Cool. It's a 5 mana 5/5 wolf. But it's keyword soup almost because it has Vigilance, Trample, and Ward 3. Why 3? Nobody knows. Whenever it attacks, you put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is the number of elves you control. You draw a card for each wolf. This is pretty much Changeling Tribal, because, I mean, with the mana dorks to help. I've seen a Voja deck go off. It is a beautiful thing if you're watching the game. If you're participating, this is probably one of the scariest things you've ever seen, because you never know if they're going to drop 7 mana dorks and then proceed to continue with or 7 changelings and proceed to just beat your face in, or in this case, eat your face off. But I'm not going to lie, Voja is a awesome commander. It is very powerful. If you decide to build this commander, let your play group know, because this is going to just, you're not going to like the reception if you just walk into a game with this. Goshintai of Life's Origins. For 3 mana, this is for 4 mana and 3 and a green. This is a 3/4 legendary enchantment creature shrine. Very few of those shrine cards, unless you count the enchantments, the regular non-creature enchantments. He also has the ability for Pay Wooburg, tap it, return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And let me just say, if you got rid of that Sanctum of All, it's coming back if you don't exile that graveyard and destroy all and exile all artifacts and enchantments, because they will just keep doing it again and again. And whenever it or another non-token shrine enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 colorless shrine enchantment creature token. 3/4 for 4 mana, not a bad call. I'm not gonna lie. This is, removable very easily. Doesn't have natural built protection on it like some commanders do. But this is actually a decent commander. I've played against this a bunch of times on Arena. It's a hit or miss on whether somebody builds this and they decide to just go thematical and shrines, or they just want to go crazy and do some other weird control shenanigans. But Like I said, this is all just kind of satire in the first part and just brutal honesty in the next part. I will agree. I do love the fact that they did actually come up with a great commander for shrines. And I mean, I can't knock nobody's yawn because if I could, I would probably build it too because those little shrine tokens are just awesome. Moving on to Asica, God of the Tree for 1 and 2 green. This is a 1/4 legendary creature, God, with Vigilance, and tap to add 1 mana of any color. Other legendary creatures you control have Vigilance and tap to add 1 mana of any color. But this is not the one that I'm upset about. This is the thing that just ruins a deck. If you build a prismatic bridge deck, you lack a lot of creativity because this is just throw in all the good stuff and hope something sticks and then get blown out before your next turn by a Feed the Swarm or a Disenchant or something or any kind of enchantment removal. Because for Wooburg, this is a legendary enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card or planeswalker card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I will say that this is a beautiful art for this card. If you build around the front side where it's just like legendary creature travel, I would actually kind of be impressed. But if you just building this as the 2 or 3 creature deck where you're just always going to go and get these creatures, that's a song and dance that's already been played out. Now, like I said, if you're doing something unique, something cool, something different with this deck, I'm all for you letting it play it once. Because as soon as it gets out of hand, it's going back in the box. Next, we have Zozu the Punisher. Now, for 1 and 2 red, this is a 2/2 legendary creature Goblin Warrior. Let me tell you, when you have a turn 1, your opponent has a turn 1 Jeweled Lotus, and Zozu comes out on turn 1, this is an immediate, some kind of way destruction spell target. As soon as this comes out, because every time you play a land, or a land enters the battlefield, it deals 2 to you. So you're into the north, your Nature's Lore, your 3 visits are all going to start hurting a lot more. And you better hope you're doing some kind of life gain, because if not, Zozu is about to just cut you in the ankles. Just shank you in the ankles. There we go. That's a better one. I have played against a deck that ran Zozu the Punisher, and it was a Kingdoms game. And I was the knight for the king. The king was the Zozu the Punisher deck. This was a pain hug. This is a, what is it called? It's not a group hug. It's a group slug deck where everybody's going to feel the pain. And I just so happened to kind of just to try to be, cheeky. I tried to hit the king to throw people off my scent so nobody would assume I was the knight. Well, it didn't matter because the Zozu player ended up taking me out first and then proceeded to win the game. And the guy looked at me, he said, "So who was my knight?" And I raised up my card. "I was your knight. I did that to throw people off of me and you killed me first." And he's like, "Oh, well, it is what it is." But I digress. This is a very interesting commander if you wanted to build around it, if you wanted to do group slug, if your opponents are constantly just getting lands. Especially now that we're in the new, like, every commander does something with landfall era, like the Necro Bloom, like, just name a commander that wants to do stuff with landfall. And everybody that wants to just fetch their lands as fast as possible. This is a great answer to that if you're willing to build it and let your play group know that, hey, this is what I'm playing, and I hope you guys are ready to go a little deeper in the think tank. And I will agree, this is a good effect because it not only punishes your opponents, but it punishes you. It is a symmetrical effect, and it's not as bad as everybody thinks it is. It makes the game go faster. And why not make a game go faster so you can make more memories and play more games? So that's Zozu the Punisher. Memnarch. And simply because of the fact that he has Narc in his name, he's going to be taking shit that don't belong to him. For 7 generic mana, this is a legendary artifact creature wizard that is a 4/5 and has 2 abilities. The first ability, for 1 and 2 blue, target permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. Oh look, your Soul Ring. It's already an artifact. Your lands. Oh, those weren't artifacts. And for 3 and a blue, you gain control of target artifact. Now there's a couple people that might run this deck, and that's fine. But I mean, why? If you want to play good cards, use the good card yourself. Don't steal everybody else's. I ran across one of these decks in the wild, and it was a thing because they ended up getting a unwinding clock out and proceeded to steal everybody's stuff as every turn. They would find a way to float mana, have extra blue, and then they would start taking the best creatures on the board. Now I will say this, if you are using this specifically to do weird shenanigan things, like, I don't know, disrupt other players' win attempts on the board, if you're literally playing this to do that, that is genius. Because, oh look, the Thassa's Oracle effect is now under somebody else's effect. Yes, it's on the stack. It probably doesn't work like that. But if you can find a way to get it around that, if you can take that before they can win with it, I mean, that's just good fun right there. Everybody does. Nobody likes steal effects. But if you're doing it for the fun, if you're doing it for the lulz, 7 mana for a 4/5 is not the way to do it, but it's definitely a fun way to do it. And kudos to you if you can build a deck that revolves significantly around stealing your opponent's stuff and doing it better than them, especially in mono blue. Then we have Atali Primo Conqueror. For 5 and 2 red, this is a 7/7 legendary creature elder dinosaur, for whatever that was worth, with trample. When it enters the battlefield, each player exiles from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among the non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. And then it transforms, becoming 11/11 with trample and indestructible and infect, whatever. This effect, I thought I was over it whenever the original Atali came out. This one just made it twice as bad because it doesn't even have to swing. It doesn't even have to do nothing, especially if you can find a way to just blink it back and forth and make more copies of it. Then it gets out of hand. And if you're doing this and just making the whole table miserable, because now you just locked everybody out. If you can find a way to do that, and then with Atali, kudos to you, man. But still, if you're doing this in a dinosaur tribal deck, though, you do have the major colors besides white. But I don't know. I mean, the white in that one is still kind of shaky. I feel like most green-red dinosaurs are still pretty good by themselves without the white. But this has brought a different kind of dynamic to the game state. It does, depending on the hits, make it a one-sided, just arch enemy type effect. Especially if you can get some really good spells off your opponents. So, I mean, Atali, it's pretty good. I didn't want to bring up the other side because it's not as important as the first side, because I've seen decks that just go off just from the front side. And then we have the bringer of death herself, Avacyn, Angel of Hope. For 5 and 3 white. This is an 8/8 legendary creature angel, flying, vigilance, and indestructible. Other permanents you control have indestructible. If this is not board wipe deck, I need somebody to point out a better commander for it. Because not only will you save all of your stuff, creatures, artifacts, lands, her, it's just especially if you can find a way to give her an unbeatable lock piece like World Render. That is just that makes the whole table scoop. And I've seen one of these decks in the wild. I played against it, and boy, was it rough. Because, yeah, if you can stop it early, kind of sits there and piddles until it gets the lands to caster, and then they start going ham on you because you were the first one to do it, and now you're going to be the first one to die. But in all honesty, if this is an Angel Tribal deck, if this is anything but board wipe tribal, I would give you a lot of props. Especially a mono white Voltron commander, this is amazing. It's super high costed, but 3 white, 1 Soul Ring, a land, Mana Crypt, 1, 2, 3, and a Jeweled Lotus. That's turn 1, Avacyn. Granted, that is a god hand, but, to each their own. This is a cool card if you can build around it in a specifically different way besides board wipes, even though board wipes are somewhat necessary to a game state. This could be an interesting build around. Tergrid, God of Fright. For 3 and 2 black, this is a 4/5 legendary creature god. This is the second one on the list. With menace, and whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And what can I say that hasn't already been said about this commander? It's probably okay. I'm not even gonna lie. At this point, it's not even that ban worthy, because it's been policed to the point to where if you have somebody in the group that plays a Tergrid deck, then it's not as bad as everybody thinks it is, because everybody ends up ganging up on him, and eventually they just stop tweaking that Tergrid deck and build something different. Now, I will say this. There are a few exceptions to the Tergrid deck that I would accept. A Lantern Tribal deck. Yes, you can laugh at that. That is hilarious, because the other side of it is Tergrid's Lantern. And not even going to be funny. There's a lot of lanterns and a lot of creatures with lanterns in their art. So if you were looking for a commander for your Lantern Tribal deck, here it is. But in all honesty, Tergrid, God of Fright, if built in a good way with a good player, or what is the word for it, if you're playing this deck and you have a good mindset on this is the deck that everybody's going to want to, beat up or try to take down first so they can continue the game. As long as if you have a good mindset on that and you build it, if you build this optimally, you just know that that's what's going to happen. If you build it thematically or janky, kudos to you, because, sometimes you do need to just need to just build something different. Build it differently. Build it in a way that nobody expects. That goes for all of these commanders, really, because, it just takes a few people to change how a card is interpreted to get the ball rolling, as you might say. So, like I said, Tergrid, God of Fright, and that's one of the ones that is just going to start causing problems. Grand Arbiter Augustine the Fourth. So, I've never been a big Azorius mage. I've never liked the white-blue color pairing, unless it had black in it, and it had zombies with it. But this one is just different. This one's just built different. Because for 2, a white and a blue, this is a 2/3 legendary creature human advisor. White spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And then you can stack it with the blue spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast. This is kind of like the same area for Avacyn. If you're doing a just complete and utter board control deck, and just be prepared because you're about to get hated on really hard. This is one of those decks that as soon as it hits, everybody is like, well, I need to just prioritize mana instead of prioritizing the turn 1 through 7 plays. Because this is going to drag a game out longer than Titanic. But on the flip side of this, if you do build this as like persistent petitioner's tribal, kudos to you. That's a good one. I mean, you're only taking advantage of half of it, but there are more advisors in the white and blue than there are any other color combination. And yeah, you are taxing your opponents, and you will probably end up being the target for a good while until Grand Arbiter comes off the board. But if you're building this in a unique and different way, like I said, Petitioner's Tribal, or, just Advisor Tribal, human advisors, and you're being kind of nicely political, or even seriously political. I mean, this could be one of those, group hug decks where you're helping players draw cards, even though that all their spells cost a little more. This could be a group hug deck if you're willing to try and make the change. But at the end of the day, just know that you got to let them know. Let them know what they're going up against before they keep going. And this is a piece of garbage. Ugh. Sorry. I just recently played against a Toxtrol deck, and it's never fun. Toxtrol the Corrosive for 5 and 2 black. This is a 7/7 legendary creature Slug Horror. And yes, it is a horror to just behold. At the beginning of each instep, not just yours, not just theirs, every instep, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. On each creature you don't control. Every other creature. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. Oh look, this is in blue-black. We're going to be proliferating. Whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, create a 1/1 black slug creature token. And then for a blue and a black, sacrifice a slug, draw a card. Now, I'm not going to say this is probably one of the dirtiest commanders you can play, because Maha just came out and we're just dealing with that already. It's one of those ones in the long line of why even? This is just the nastiest commander to put on a full board state with protection that nobody can do anything about. And if you can find a way to keep it phased out, or phased out until the insteps are protected forever, then the board just becomes your playground. Now I will say this. Slug Tribal. It's a very interesting thing. I won't even be mad for you for playing a Slug Tribal. I'm not going to like it, but I will appreciate it. A lot of people don't see that this is the greatest slug commander that probably will ever exist, and the only one that will probably ever exist. And, sometimes you just got to give a little to... You got to know that this is going to draw some hate. But, if you're playing slugs, 100% go for it. I'm there with you. As long as you don't kill my zombies. But, I mean, there are a bunch of effects that shut this down. Like, Solemnity, and that one green creature that says your creatures can't get -1/-1 counters or whatever. And, that's there's going to be times where, somebody's going to play that and you're just kind of just stuck in the mud. But, all in all, if you're at the end of the day, if you're playing Toxrill and you're having fun with it, and your play group agrees, then that's fine. Good for you. And that is going to be it for this type of episode. If you want to see more like different commanders or different opinions on commanders or different cards in general, the saltiest cards commander or whatever, let me know down in the comments below. I do like to do just random things like this every now and then. We don't have any zombies coming up and probably coming out until Duskmorn. The next set to come out after that is the Foundation set. And that's probably just going to be a hoot to do. Because we all know there's going to be zombies, and the zombies are a foundational part of Magic. But that is going to be it for today, everybody. Let me know in the comments below some of the commanders that just, are just going to lead to bad games. And I'll see you, and I appreciate, before I go, I appreciate everybody that likes, comments, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel out a lot, and I couldn't do it without you guys. But that's going to be it for today, and I'll see you guys next time in the graveyard.